Hi, I'm Maya. My parents lost their entire life savings in crypto scams. They blamed me for trying to warn them, and now I'm the outcast in my own family. It's hard to describe how it feels to be rejected by the ones you'd do anything for, all because you spoke up to keep them safe. The hurt lingers, a quiet ache I've grown used to carrying. I still replay those moments, wondering if silence would have kept us closer. But I had to try. If this story resonates, please subscribe, like, and tell me where in the world you're listening from. I truly want to know who hears this. It matters to me. It all started when my parents reconnected with an old college friend, Mr. Johnson. He was always the adventurous type, full of big ideas and grand plans. Recently, he'd gotten into cryptocurrency and couldn't stop talking about it. Over dinner one night, he painted a picture of easy money and financial freedom, how a small investment could turn into a fortune overnight. My parents, who had always been cautious with money, were surprisingly captivated. Maybe it was the promise of securing their retirement or the allure of something new and exciting. Whatever it was, they were hooked. Soon, our family dinners revolved around Bitcoin, Ethereum, and coins I'd never even heard of. My parents would excitedly discuss the profits they were making, how they'd retire early, maybe even buy a vacation home by the beach. "Just imagine, Maya," my mom would say, her eyes sparkling. "We could travel the world." My dad would nod, adding, "And you won't have to worry about student loans. We'll take care of everything." They sounded so sure, so swept up in it all. I wanted to believe them, to share in that excitement, but something felt off. As the weeks turned into months, I couldn't help but notice that nothing actually changed. We still lived in the same modest house, drove the same beat-up car, and my parents still dragged themselves to their regular jobs every morning. The luxurious life they kept bragging about remained just that, talk. They'd go on about their smart investments and future wealth. But where was it? It was like they were living in a fantasy, and I was the only one who could see the cracks. I started to worry. I'd heard stories about crypto scams, people losing everything to fake promises and shady schemes. One evening, I worked up the nerve to say something. "Mom, Dad, maybe you should be careful with this crypto stuff. It seems too good to be true," I said, keeping my tone light so they wouldn't think I was judging them. My mom laughed softly, patting my hand like I was a kid who didn't get it. "Oh, Maya, you're too young to understand. This is the future of money." My dad chimed in. "We're being smart about it, don't worry." Smart about it? I wanted to laugh at how they sounded so smug, like I was the silly one for even questioning them. But I couldn't let it go. I remembered a friend from school, Sarah, whose uncle had fallen hard for crypto. He'd been promised insane returns, quit his job to live the dream, only to find out it was all a scam. He lost his life savings, had to sell his house, and last I heard, he was sleeping on park benches. It broke my heart to think about, and I couldn't stand the idea of my parents ending up like that. So, one night, I tried again. "Sarah's uncle thought he was being careful too," I said, my voice shaking a little. "But he still lost everything. His house, his money, everything. Please, just think about it." They exchanged a look, and for a split second, I thought maybe I'd gotten through. But then my dad shook his head. "That's unfortunate, but it won't happen to us. We're working with Mr. Johnson. He knows what he's doing." My mom nodded, adding, "Besides, we've already made some money. It's real, Maya." Real, I wanted to scream. If it was so real, why were we still eating off the same chipped plates every night? But they wouldn't hear it. They were too caught up in the dream of quick riches, too blind to the danger staring them in the face. I went to bed that night feeling helpless and alone. My parents were drifting further into this greedy, reckless world, and I didn't know how to pull them back. They'd dismissed me like I was some naive kid, but deep down, I think I knew the truth they couldn't face. And oh, how I wish they'd listened. Just once. It was a quiet Sunday evening, the kind where the house felt too still, like the air itself was holding its breath. We were in the living room, my parents on the couch, their eyes glued to their phones, no doubt checking their precious crypto investments again. I sat across from them, my stomach twisting into knots as I clutched the article I'd found that morning. It was about a crypto scam that had ruined thousands of lives, and it sounded eerily like what they were tangled up in. I had to try again, even if they hated me for it. "Mom, Dad," I began, my voice soft, hesitant. "I read something today that scared me. There was this scam. People lost everything. It's so similar to what you're doing." My mom didn't even lift her head. "Maya, we've heard this before," she said, her voice flat and weary, like I was a broken record. "We're not stupid. We're being careful." I took a shaky breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "But how do you know? The people in this article thought they were careful too. They trusted the wrong people and— Enough!" My dad's voice sliced through mine, harsh and loud. He slammed his phone onto the coffee table, the sound making me jump. "Why are you always so suspicious, Maya? We're your parents. Don't you trust your own family?" His words hit me like a punch, sharp and unfair. "I do trust you," I said, my throat tightening. "This isn't about trust, it's about the risk. I don't want you to lose everything." My mom finally looked up, her gaze icy. "You're the one causing trouble, Maya. All this doubt, this negativity. It's you who's hurting us." I stared at her, stunned. How could they twist it like that? I was trying to save them. "I'm not trying to hurt anyone," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm scared for us. What if it's a lie? What if we end up with nothing?" My dad shot to his feet, his face flushed with anger. "You think we're idiots, don't you? That we can't handle our own money? You're just a kid. What do you even know?" "I know people lie, Dad," I pleaded, desperation creeping in. "I know easy money isn't real. Please, just listen. I love you. I don't want you to end up like Sarah's uncle, broken. That set them off. My mom's eyes flashed with rage. "Stop it. We're not him. We're smarter than that. You're too suspicious, Maya, always stirring up trouble." "Smarter?" The word slipped out before I could stop it, sharp and bitter. "You're gambling our lives on something you barely understand." Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Then, out of nowhere, my dad's hand swung toward me. The slap cracked across my cheek, loud and brutal, snapping my head to the side. Pain flared, hot and stinging, but it was the shock that stole my breath. "Shut your mouth," he snarled, his voice low and venomous. "You don't talk to us like that." I pressed my hand to my cheek, tears burning my eyes, but I wouldn't let them spill. My mom sat there, frozen, her lips parted like she might say something, but she didn't. The room felt like a tomb, cold and empty. I wanted to scream, to run, to hate them. But I couldn't. They were my parents, and I loved them, even now. So I choked down the sob in my throat and whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. I just care." "Go to your room, Maya," my dad said, turning away, his voice hard. "We're done with this." I stood on shaky legs and walked away, the sting on my face pulsing with every step. In my room, I shut the door and sank onto my bed, curling into myself. The tears came then, silent and unstoppable, soaking my pillow. My cheek throbbed, but my heart hurt worse. Cracked open by their words, their hands. They didn't trust me, they didn't want me. Yet I couldn't give up. I had to find a way to reach them, to pull them back before it all fell apart. After the slap from Dad, I curled up in my room, tears soaking my pillow. The argument from the living room echoed in my mind. My warnings brushed off like I was some clueless kid who didn't understand crypto, but I couldn't give up. They were my parents, and I couldn't watch them plunge into ruin. I decided to try something else. Bring in someone who'd lost it all to crypto, hoping their real story might snap Mom and Dad out of their delusion. I thought of Uncle Hoa, my best friend Lynn's uncle. He'd once told us about his dark days, losing his house, his money, ending up homeless because he trusted the empty promises of crypto riches. I called him, my voice shaky. "Uncle Hoa, please help me. My parents won't listen to me, but maybe they'll hear you. I don't want them to lose everything." He went quiet for a moment, then sighed. "I don't like digging up the past, Maya. But if it's to save your folks, I'll try." I thanked him over and over, relieved. The day Uncle Hoa came, my nerves were on edge. Mom and Dad sat on the sofa, their faces stony, clearly just humoring me by agreeing to this. Uncle Hoa started, his voice low and heavy. "I was like you two, thought I was smarter than most. I dumped all my savings into crypto, took out loans to invest more. They promised me the moon, a big payout, a dream life. Then one day, my account was empty. The company vanished. No trace. I lost my house, my car, ended up sleeping on the streets, scavenging leftovers to survive." He paused, his eyes welling up. "I just don't want you to end up like me. Pull out now, while you still can." I watched Mom and Dad, waiting for some sign of doubt, but Dad smirked, his tone icy. "Thanks for sharing, but we're not you. We've got a reliable guide, and we've already made real money. You just had bad luck." Mom nodded. "We're not naive. We know what we're doing." I was stunned. Uncle Hoa had bared his deepest wounds, and they still wouldn't budge? "You're fooling yourselves," I cried, tears spilling out. "Uncle Hoa lost everything, and you still think you're untouchable?" Dad glared. "Maya, that's enough! Stop meddling in adult business." Uncle Hoa stood shaking his head. "I've done what I can. I hope you don't regret this." He left, and I felt helplessness swallow me whole. Over the next few weeks, Mom and Dad dove deeper into their obsession. They borrowed more cash, sold off land, convinced they were on the cusp of a jackpot. I could only watch, my heart sinking lower each day. Then one evening, I came home to Mom slumped at the kitchen table sobbing. Dad clutched his head, his phone on the floor. "It's gone, Maya," he whispered, his voice lifeless. "All of it. They took everything." I froze, a mix of shock and agony hitting me. I'd warned them so many times, begged them, and yet here we were. Mom grabbed my hand, crying, "You were right. Why didn't I listen?" I wanted to scream that I'd tried my hardest, but seeing them broken, I just felt pity. "We'll get through this," I said, though my own heart was in pieces. "As long as we're together, we'll start over." Even with everything in ruins, I held on to a shred of hope. Maybe this was the wake-up call they needed. Maybe from these ashes, we could rebuild a stronger family. 6 months had passed since that night when my parents' world crumbled. I couldn't stay in that house any longer, suffocated by the echoes of their greed and my ignored pleas. So, I left. I rented a small apartment in the city, a cramped bedroom and a living area with a leaky faucet, but it was mine. I stitched together a life with 2 jobs, mornings steaming coffee at a cafe, evenings shelving books at a store. The pay was steady, enough to cover rent and keep me afloat. For the first time, I felt free. I didn't hear from my parents for months. Word trickled in through a cousin. They'd sold the house to settle debts, but it wasn't enough. They bounced between cheap motels and my aunt's spare room until her patience ran dry. I tried not to care, but the thought of them unraveling gnawed at me. Then, one rainy night, my phone lit up. It was my mother. "Maya," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We've got nowhere left. Your aunt kicked us out. Can we stay with you?" My father's silence loomed behind her words, heavy and ashamed. I clenched my jaw, memories of their betrayal flooding back. The slap, the dismissal. But they were still my parents. "Yes," I said, my voice flat. "Come over." They arrived the next day, looking hollowed out. My mother clung to me, sobbing into my shoulder. My father lingered by the door, muttering a gruff, Thank you, Maya. I led them to the corner of my living room where a pull-out couch waited. It's not much, I said, but it'll do. The first few days were stiff, like we were actors in a play we hadn't rehearsed. I cooked simple meals, rice, vegetables, whatever was cheap. They ate in silence, their eyes avoiding mine. We were together, but miles apart. One night, as I scrubbed dishes, my father shuffled in. Maya, I owe you an apology. I was a fool. Greed took over and I hurt you. That slap. I'm ashamed of it. I'm sorry. His voice cracked, his eyes wet. I stared at him, feeling the weight of his words. I forgive you, Dad, I said coolly. But it's not just the slap. It's everything. Years of not seeing me. He nodded, defeated, and I turned back to the sink. I thought that might be a turning point, but old habits die hard. A week later, I came home late, bone-tired from work, and caught their voices through the thin walls. She's always gone, my mother hissed. We're just dead weight to her. She should be doing more, my father growled. We raised her, didn't we? This is the least she owes us. I stood there, frozen, a familiar ache twisting in my chest. They hadn't learned a thing. To them, I was a lifeline, not a daughter who chose to help despite the scars they'd left. After that, I pulled back. I kept things civil, bought groceries, paid the bills, but I locked my heart away. I wanted to let go of the past, to forgive them completely, but trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. Not yet. So, I stayed kind but distant, a wall between us for my own sake. Still, late at night, as rain tapped the window, I let myself hope. Maybe time could mend us, bit by bit. For now, though, this was enough. Together under one roof, a fragile start to something new. A year has slipped by since my parents arrived at my doorstep, their lives unraveled, their dreams of wealth reduced to ash. Those first months were suffocating, meals eaten in silence, their eyes avoiding mine, the air thick with their bitterness at depending on me. I kept my distance, shielding myself from their disappointment, yet deep down, I clung to a fragile hope that things could get better. And slowly, they did. I found a new job as a project coordinator at a small tech firm. It wasn't the kind of role that turns heads, but it was steady, and the paycheck covered our needs with a little left over. I started saving, bit by bit, until 6 months later, I had enough to buy a small house on the edge of the city. It's a simple place, 2 bedrooms, a patchy lawn, and a white picket fence that leans slightly to one side. The day I unlocked the door, I stood there, keys jingling in my hand, and felt a weight lift. This was mine, ours, a fresh start carved out of hard work and patience. My parents have changed too. Time has marked them, gray streaks in their hair, deeper lines on their faces. But it's more than that. They've grown clearer, steadier. The wild talk of cryptocurrency windfalls and risky investments has faded, replaced by a quiet acceptance. My father spends his mornings in the yard now, tending to a small garden of tomatoes, peppers, and marigolds. He moves slowly, hands in the dirt, as if coaxing life from the earth is his way of making amends. My mother sits nearby, knitting needles clicking, crafting scarves and blankets she gives away to anyone who'll take them. In the evenings, they sit together on the porch, watching the sun sink below the horizon, their shoulders touching, their voices low and calm. One night, as we shared a simple meal, rice, grilled vegetables, the kind of food that fills you without fanfare, my father set down his fork and looked at me. "Maya," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "I'm sorry. I chased things I didn't understand, and I nearly lost us everything." My mother nodded, her eyes glistening. "We're lucky to still have you," she whispered. I reached for their hands, my throat tight. "I've learned something too," I said. "Money comes and goes, but this is what lasts." It's a lesson we've all taken to heart. Understanding and sobriety outweigh blind ambition. Greed clouded their judgment once, But now they treasure the ordinary. A warm meal, a blooming flower, a shared laugh. I do too. We've stopped chasing shortcuts and started building something real, one small step at a time. As I sit by the window now, watching them in the garden, my father pruning, my mother winding yarn, I feel a stillness settle over me. The late afternoon sun bathes the yard in gold, and the breeze carries the sound of rustling leaves. Life isn't flawless. The roof leaks sometimes, and the bills still stack up. But we're together, and that's more than enough. I close my eyes, letting the peace of this moment sink in, and I know that whatever lies ahead, we'll face it side by side, grounded in the clarity we've fought so hard to find.